So, the mediums book. Today we start mediums. It took 9 chapters to get to mediums, right? And it's the mediums book. And we see here the importance of preparing us to get to this point. We covered a lot of stuff here. No, we covered, what am I say, 14 chapters. I can't read Roman numbers anymore. It took us 13 chapters to get to mediums, and this is the mediums book. So Kardec really prepares us to have a better understand, to have now the foundation necessary to understand this thing that we call mediums. If we go to the normal dictionaries out there, mediums will be synonymous as an intermediary, as an element that allows things to grow, to build a medium to grow bacteria, a medium to grow fungus in a laboratory. A medium will be, again, the one that allow interchange between two things. Mediums as a word in spirituality, I don't know for sure, but I have known that Kardec was one who started using the word mediums in spirituality. Before Kardec, the word usually was psychics. They was called the ones who had the ability to make this interchange of energies, of thoughts, would be called psychics. And Kardec, again, as initiating a new science, saw the necessity of having its own nomenclature for things. I can't say absolutely for sure that Kardec is one who did not invent the word existed, nor has it from the Latin, but to apply that to spirituality, he's the one who started that. So let us start today mediums. We're probably gonna finish physical effects and electrical persons. Take this off to this bonus. Okay. So Raida, can you read? So Raida?
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, no problem.
I forget. Okay, so we begin mediums, seeing mediums, somnambulistic mediums, healing mediums, pneumatographical mediums, 159. Every individual who senses the influence of spirits to any degree of intensity is a medium. This faculty is inherited to humankind. It therefore does not constitute an exclusive privilege, and there are very few individuals who do not possess it, at least in a rudimentary state. Thus, we can state that everyone is a medium to a certain degree. Usually, however, this label is applied solely to those who possess a well-characterized mediumistic faculty that expresses itself through patent effects of a certain intensity, which depends on a more or less sensitive physical organization. One should further note that this faculty does not express itself in all mediums in the same way. Mediums usually have a special aptitude for this or that order phenomenon, which divides them into as many different varieties as there are kinds of manifestations. The main varieties are physical effects mediums, sensitive or impressionable mediums, hearing, speaking, seeing, somnambulistic, healing, pneumatographic, writing, or psychographical mediums.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think the very first topic, the item 159, is the most important topic we're going to read here today. To be really comfortable with the idea of mediumistic be an attribute of humankind that belongs to the human race. Every individual who senses the influence of spirits by any degree of intensity is a medium. Therefore, here's the definition of medium in accordance to Kardec, right? The ability to sense the influence of spirits by any degree. Any degree. It's very important. Because this any degree of density is there allows Kardec to say we can state that everyone is a medium to a certain degree. So we are all mediums. And it makes absolute sense with the moral values that we learn from Spiritism, with the absolute certainty that God is just. Well, if God is just, why you provide the one attribute to some individual and not to another? Because it's not like, let's say, develop the skills of playing the piano, develop the skills of perform surgery, perform the skills of building a bridge, of to architect a bridge, some things that we put our after and we developed. Mediumship, we are born mediums. We are born with that attribute. We cannot claim merit of putting it upon ourselves. We can claim the merit of developing it. We're going to see that later, right? The same way that an individual may have the potential of becoming a great piano player, but if he doesn't sit and do the scales and practice it, he can waste that attribute. We're not going to develop. Okay, the mediumship more or less like that as well. Although there are some cases that individuals fight with their attribute, do not want to have it, and still it happens. We're going to see that also happens in mediumship. And of course, there is always a reason. And if it's something God provides for us, and when I say God, of course, everybody knows that I'm talking about the divine laws here, right? Presents to us is for our good. May not necessarily be all pleasant, but definitely for our good. So be comfortable with the idea that this ability to sense the influence of spirits at any degree of intensity is something that is common for the human race, for everyone. One, because God is just, do not deny something that is good for us. And why is it good for us? Well, God gave us or provide to us those who guide, those who help us, those who prepare us to have a better life here, those who knows more than us and are here to guide us, that we call our spiritual guides, spirit guides, or protecting spirits or guardian angels, if you prefer. What a waste of energy, of any, or a waste of resource if we could not interact. We could, if you could not sense the influence of those more evolved spirits who are here to help us. One could not imagine that God would be so silly to put someone to help us and not provide us the means to receive that help, to interact with that spirit. So if we more than believe, understand that we have a spiritual guide, that we have a guardian angel, we must accept that there must be a mean of interchange between us and those spirits. So the faculty has to be a common denominator for all of us. And I think this is the most important thing for us to be comfortable with everything I'm going to read here today. Now, naturally, when we use the word mediums, we kind of exclude ourselves. Most of us, we exclude ourselves from this group of individuals that we call mediums because most of us does not have what we call a more ostensive kind of mediumship that produces more palpable effect, right? And Kardec says that usually, however, this label, and use label, is applied solely to those who possess a well-characterized mediumistic faculty that expresses itself through patent effects of a certain intensity, which depends more or less on a more or less sensitive physical organization. Very important, physical organization. Kardec state over here also that this more ostensive, this ability to express with greater intensity our mediumship depends on a physical organization. And again, it's not a physical organization that we build for ourselves. We may develop, make it better, but it's something that we come with it. It's already part of our reincarnation plan, so to say, right? And if it's provided to us by these divine laws that is meant for our happiness, for spiritual growth, then we have to assume that it's for good. What we do with it is up to us. For that, we have the free will. But if you come with this organic organization, it is for good. And if we educate ourselves, it will be a good tool for us to use. But again, we have free will. Another thing important to understand here is the faculty does not express itself in all mediums. This is very important. They say in the same way. So different mediums, you have the ability to express this faculty in different ways. One will have a visual interchange with the spiritual dimension. Someone's will have an auditory interchange with the with the spiritual dimension. Others you have the so-called ability of the physical phenomena. Others will have this expansion of the perispirit that will allow the medium to receive the thoughts of a spirit and put those thoughts in different ways, being writing or speaking. And all these we're going to see specific cases. And it's also important to note that a medium may have one of those means of expression, but it could have more than one. A medium who have the potential of a physical effect may also be a medium of psychography or of somnambulistic medium. It may have more than one of those expressions of its mediumship, not limited to one and alone. Okay. But again, the most important, I stress that very much. You need to eliminate this taboo of putting the interchange with the spiritual world or the act of mediumship as something belong to a very few special individuals that you know. That depends on what our belief or understand. We will demonize them or we will put them on a pedestal. And mediums are neither. Mediums are human beings like us. What we do with that mediumship is what qualifies that mediumship. Okay, and that requires education, not only of the faculty itself, but more important, of our moral values. And we're going to see that very clearly as we continue to read. Is there any question there? Because you need to be really comfortable with this idea to eliminate the idea of mediumship being something extraordinary, extra supernatural. It's neither. It's a common thing for all of us. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So
Okay, we'll continue. Physical effects mediums. 160. Physical effects mediums are particularly able to induce physical phenomenon, just as movements of inert objects, noises, etc. They may be divided into facultative mediums and involuntary mediums. Facultative mediums are aware of their ability and induce spirit phenomenon through their own will. As we have stated, although this faculty is inherited in the human species, it is far from manifesting itself in all mediums to the same degree. However, if there are a few individuals who do not possess it at all, there are even fewer who can induce impressive effects, such as suspending heavy objects in mid-air, moving them through the air, and especially inducing apparitions. The simplest effects involve the rotation of an object, raps produced by the lifting of an object, or raps produced internally in the object's own substance. Although we do not attribute any major importance to these phenomena, we nevertheless do not believe that they should be slighted. They can provide interesting observations and can contribute to strengthening one's convictions. But one should note that the faculty of inducing physical effects rarely manifests among those who have more advanced means of communication at their disposal, such as writing and speech. The faculty usually decreases to the degree that another develops.
okay. So Kardec starts with the most basic and primordials of the expressions of our mediumistic abilities being the physical effect mediums. We already seen, going backwards, that those manifestations are done because there are mediums who are able to provide a component that is necessary for the physical phenomenon to happen, and we know now that is ectoplasm. It's a kind of substance that we all produce, every human being produces, but some produces in quantity that is sufficient to be utilized by spirits to perform phenomenons. And why is it called physical effects? Because it affects our physical senses, meaning that this kind of phenomenon will be witnessed by everyone present in the room having a more extensive or less extensive mediumship. If the spirit creates, let's say, levitates furniture in the room, everybody in that room will see as long as they have physical eyes to see. If they produces raps, everyone who has good hearing will hear it, independent of the degree of the mediumship that one possesses. That's why it's called physical effect, because affect our physical senses. If they bring the smell of roses, everyone in the room will smell roses, and they're going to look around and there are no roses at all, but the smell of roses that are present. Spirits may produce a physical effect and bring that. In order to do that, the spirits need to have a medium of physical effect present in that room or somewhat nearby to utilize what the the substance that can utilize to produce the phenomenon. Kardec divides those medium effects into the facultative and the involuntary mediums. And basically the difference is that one knows what's happening, the other one has no idea. Primarily, that's what it is. The facultative mediums are aware of their ability and induce the phenomena through their own will. In other words, they are aware that they have that special talent. And once you are aware of it, then you may be able to evoke, to call the spirit to say, let's perform a physical phenomena. In order to evoke and call someone to do something, you have to know that you have that ability. So the facultative meter is the one who is aware of it. This this ability is not so common. Okay, Kardec tells over here that if there are a few individuals who do not possess it at all, there are even fewer who can induce impressive effects, such as suspending heavy objects in mid-air, moving them through the air, and especially inducing apparitions. So the more obvious and palpable kinds of physical effects, such as levitation, such as apparitions, these are not really common things. And thank God, right? I mean, it would open room to a lot of misuse of this faculty for those who are not prepared to manage such a power. But is a more common type of this facultative mediums, the one who can produce still physical phenomena, but not as grandiose as the one that Kardec mentioned before, and that would be to produce the raps, small objects, and things more subtle, so to say. Because again, if the medium needs to gives off that substance in ectoplasm to produce a phenomena, one would imagine that by the amount of produce such a bigger phenomenon like levitating a piano, causing apparition, would require tremendous amount of this substance and requires a very special environment for that to happen. But more common things like at raps and little noises here and there, that's more common. It's important to say that Kardec says here that we do not attribute any major importance to these phenomena. Not really interested in the physical phenomena here because the doctrine was developed to teach us moral values. That is the true object, according to Erasmus in this book, that mediumship and the use of mediumship used by the good spirits or the spirits that brought the doctrine to us, they are not interested in performing phenomena for the entertainment, but for our moral progress. So they do not attribute any major importance to these phenomena. But nevertheless, we do not believe they should be cited because everything has a value, everything is important for us as a science to understand, right? We're not gonna use it, but you want to understand it, you want to know it, and we can use it, if nothing else, as a means to demonstrate that the phenomenon happens, that it's natural, there is this interchange of energy between the spiritual and the physical world. So there is value in it, but it's not what the objective of the doctrine itself. With the objective of the doctrine, again, is to teach us moral values, is to teach us to follow the steps of Jesus Christ. And it says over here that once the medium of physical effect who applies oneself and seek to follow the objective of the doctrine, upgrade of our moral values, will have also all the faculties and will choose to use all the faculties other than the physical effect. And Kardec says here, one should not raise the faculty of those physical effects rarely manifest amongst those who have more advanced means of communicating at their disposal, such as writing and speed. The faculty will decreases to the degree that another develops. So as we choose to develop ourselves, to use this mediumship for greater reason than entertainment or just proving mediumship in itself, we start going more towards an intelligent phenomenon that produces the speech and the writing. And at that point, we kind of let aside or decreases the ability of the physical manifestation. Um, Chico Xavier is an example of that. Have a very extensive physical phenomena, have produced lots of phenomena. Came to a point that Emmanuel came to him and said, let's leave this aside. We don't have time for this now. We are here to produce books. Because books is what is important. Book is what educate people. Any questions? Any comment? All right. All right, so I can continue. Zoraida,
Yes.
continue. 161.
Yes. Involuntary or natural mediums are those who exert their influence without realizing it. They are unaware of their ability, and almost always, whatever happens around them that appears to be abnormal does not seem so extraordinary to them at all. These matters make up part of who they are, exactly like persons gifted with second sight but who are unaware of it. These individuals are worthy of observation, and we should not neglect gathering and studying the facts of this kind that may come to our attention. They have occurred throughout history and frequently among young children.
Okay,
Mhm.
quick stop here because I think this paragraph is the most important from everything else on 161. So Kardec divides the physical effect mediums into groups, the ones who know it, the ones who doesn't know it. The ones who are aware and are therefore able to evoke and therefore have control of it. You cannot have control of something that you don't know, right?
Mhm.
And the other group, because the involuntary or natural mediums, being those who are able to perform the thing without realizing it. They are unaware of the ability and, very important, almost always. Whatever happens around them that appears to be abnormal does not seem so extraordinary to them at all. What happens to those mediums is they learn to live with that faculty and it becomes their normal. What we looking from the outside, from a distance, seems to be something crazy. For them, it's completely natural to them, right? If you see an ambidextrous person, one who starts writing with one hand and then change to the other hand, they continue to write completely equally with the other hand, we look at this and say, oh my goodness, this is weird. Because most of us, we can only write with one hand. But there are individuals out there who can write with both. For us, it's abnormal. For them, it's completely normal. Not common, but that's what they are. That's how they live with. Um, he says over here that the phenomenon can happen to anyone. And although it does not provide the moral involvement that we're trying, it's important to study them, to understand them. And when he says over here, they have occurred through history and frequently amongst children, these amongst children, he says, is referring to the second sight when he says these matters make up part of who they are, exactly like persons gifted with second sight who are unaware of it. So the idea of children have the invisible friend that is kind of common. And for children, it is absolutely normal. Unfortunately, very often the adults that they create the abnormality, they create the fear, they put wrong ideas in the child's mind. But for them, it's completely normal if they have a invisible friend. If they come to mom and dad and say, "Oh, my friend over here is telling me this. My friend over here, I like to play with my friend over here." That is, mom and dad cannot see anybody in the room. They may freak out. But for the child, there's nothing freaking about. It's completely normal. Okay, so just want to make sure they understand this. Frequently among children is a reference to second sight, not necessarily to the physical phenomena. Okay, continue.
Okay, 162.
No, it is still the top there. This
Oh, the
top.
top. Okay, okay, I see. Okay. This faculty is not per se an indication of a pathological state because it is not incompatible with perfect health. If the person who possesses it is ill, the illness is caused by something else. Moreover, therapeutic procedures are powerless to make it disappear. In some cases, it can appear after a certain period of organic weakness, but it is never the weakness efficiency cause. Therefore, there is no reason to become concerned with it as far as one's health is concerned. There would only be a problem if the individual, upon becoming a facultative medium, used it in an abusive manner. For then there could be an excessive emission of vital fluid, which could then result in organic weakening.
This is also quite important because unfortunately, if it's not as much today, but it still happens today, at one point, anyone who possesses the mediunistic faculty would be labeled for being psychiatric ill or being under the influence of the devil or things like that, right?
Yeah.
And Kardec, he has to make a point and say, this is not pathological. This is completely health. It has nothing to do with organic health. This is a mental, he calls it mental, but we know it's a spiritual phenomenon, okay, that in any way affects your health. Okay, important to separate the two things. A person may be a medium. A person may be ill, may have a psychiatric condition. Important to notice that one thing does not exclude the other. A person may be a medium and have a pathology as well, not necessarily one or another. The fact that one may have both, have the mediunistic faculty, ostensive mediunistic faculty. I hope I don't have to be saying ostensive all the time. And also have a psychiatric condition. There is no where's the word cause? One is not the cause of the other. Okay. We cannot say that the individual become mentally ill because of the mediumship caused it. Okay. And you cannot say the other way around also that won't become a medium because of a pathological psychiatric condition. They are exclusive of one another. They're independent. They are not cause of one another. Okay, they are not the consequence of one another. One may have just one may have just another, or may have both independently. Now, there's always exceptions to the rules, there is no doubt. And Kardec makes a point that's very important here. There would be a problem if the individual, upon become a facultative medium, very important, use it in an abusive manner. For then, there could be an excessive emission of vital fluids, which could then result in organic weakening. It needs to be a facultative, because being facultative, then you have control of it. Have control of it, you can abuse it. And by abusing anything that you abuse can become a problem. And because you have the knowledge and the control, then there is intention. And that's a big word in spiritism. The word intention is very important. And intention is what really generates the karmas, if you want, the good and bad consequences, because it will generate a consequence. If you abuse something, you should expect that the consequences not be all that good. So when there is an intentional misuse of the faculty, it could become a problem. And that problem could result in a health issue because, again, for the phenomenon to happen, we have to provide fluids. We have to exert a good amount of energy to produce that phenomenon. And if you misuse it, if you abuse it, we may deplete ourselves of the energy, and that could become a problem. Okay? So again, there is always exceptions to the rules, and the exception will be here because you're separating units from mediumship, and it's very important to do that. But there is an exception here when we intentionally misuse the faculty. It could generate an organic problem.
Yeah.
Any questions and comment? This is also very important to understand. And again, it's very important to demystify mediumship, to eliminate the taboos.
Yeah.
Okay, 162.
Okay. 162. Reason revolts at remembering the mental and physical tortures that science has sometimes inflicted on feeble and delicate persons in order to assure that there was no fraud on their part. Most of the time, such experiments performed with evil intentions are often harmful to sensitive organisms and can cause serious disorders in the organic economy. Performing tests such as these is to play with life itself. A good faith researcher does not need to employ such means. Those who are familiar with these phenomena, moreover, know that they belong more to the mental than to the physical order, and that it would be futile to try to find their solution in our exact sciences.
Thanks.
Okay.
So it's important for us to understand that when the phenomenon started, the phenomenon always existed, right, throughout human existence. But when it becomes more common, when it becomes popular, there are those who absolutely rejected for religious reason, those who absolutely rejected for pseudo-scientific reasons. And I say pseudo because they already decide that something's possible or not possible without putting it to experiment. And there are those who, for scientific reasons, more intelligent and more scientifically also, decided to experiment to prove it, to put it to a test to prove its possibility or no possibility, to eliminate frauds, to prove that the phenomenon was happening naturally and not being a fraudulent phenomenon. The intention is good in the beginning, but the means of performing the experiments was inhumane. Mediums have been exposed to tremendous amount of torture. Kardec puts over here experiments performed with ill intentions. So there are also those who already enter in this experiment with more of a state of mind of cause and torture than really scientific design, although there are some that had a scientific design, but was also torturous and difficult for the medium, expose the medium to tremendous amount of problems that cause physical and psychological problems to them. And there was also mediums at fault, mediums who insist in prove to the whole world that they were not frauds, that they were not lying, that there was real things. Mistake that they made, because if people do not believe, do not reason properly, they will not. You mutilate yourself, you harm yourself, you will try to change people's mind, and it would not help. Those who think that mediumship is the work of the devil, you're not going to change their mind by exposing yourself to torture. And this happened. This really happened at the time of Kardec.
Mm.
Naturally, the true scientists who had the right idea when they saw that the experiment was not fruitful and was more important, harmful to the muse, they stopped it. And those who continue, of course, the ones who have in mind, as Kardec put over here, evil intentions. But it happened a lot. And again, I have to open up parents that a lot of time was the pride and the ill intentions of use the mediumship that allowed mediums to expose themselves for this kind of tortures as well. So not only the scientific community was at fault at many times, the mediums themselves was at fault for allowing that to happen to themselves, trying to prove something that requires education from our part to understand it and not the sacrifice of them, and because they want to profit from that as well. So there's a lot of blame for this unfortunately things that happened. Comments?
It's interesting, right? That Kardec writes this in 1861, and here in the US, the Fox sisters continue to be abused and throughout their lives, continue to be doubted, put to proof, and tested to a point that one of them denied that everything happened and said that it was all false, was a hoax, and then retracted. But it kind of destroyed their lives in a way. Of course, if they were no mediums, and they would continue living a very simple life there in that their time, we don't know what would happen, but they were abused, and not only that, right? In Europe, uh, much later, beginning of the 20th century, one of the most famous mediums, Eusapia Palladino, an Italian woman, was abused all over, and to a point that she started faking her own mediumship to avoid being more explored and abused, and it continued throughout her life. So nowadays there's no abuses, but there's still scientific experiments with mediums that we know of some that are performed in a humane and scientific way, but we don't know what happens with mediums in places that have no access to this knowledge or no control of the abuses of other human beings, right? So Kardec brought it all in 1861, and unfortunately, people continue abusing it for a very long time, maybe until today.
Yeah, but today not much as much as I know. We don't know what's happening over there, and because today there is tremendous amount of ethical regulations through scientific experiments, especially in this field, in psychiatry, psychology. We cannot do a lot of tests because it would be considered inhumane, because it will expose the subjects to a tremendous amount of problems that could generate other problems, right? So I do not doubt that there is experiment being done, but not being published because to be condemned by science itself. It's possible that it's happening. But this phenomenon is being studies being done today using functional MRIs, putting mediums to machine to do MRIs and things like that. That it's humane, it's fine, right? But the abuses that happened in the past, hopefully it's over. But I have to go back here and say that there is a lot of blame to be shared, including the mediums who subject themselves to those kind of tortures. Very often they are not forced and obliged to perform to be a part of those abuses. They put themselves through it out of pride, seeking to gain anything from it. I think the Foxes is a good example of that.
Yes, they did. They did got excited by their fame, and of course they were making good money on top of it. So they allow themselves to be subjected to all these abusive experiments, of course. But in the end, the abuse took a toll on them.
Yeah.
I don't know. One of them became alcoholic, and one of them escaped everything, moved to Europe with the husband, and so yes, of course, there is always the part of the medium that you have to analyze, and I'm sure Eusapia Palladino also. I don't know her story very well, but I'm sure she engaged in these experiments out of her own desire for something, right?
Yeah.
But so yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. We'll continue then.
Please.
Yeah. Due to the fact that these phenomena belong to the mental order, everything that could overexcite the imagination of such persons should be avoided with no less rigorous caution. We know how many accidents can produce fear, and there would be less imprudence if we knew all the cases of mental infirmity and epilepsy that provoked it by stories of werewolves and boogeymen. So what would happen if they could persuade someone that he or she was dealing with the devil? Those who seek to convince others of such ideas do not know the responsibility they assume. They can kill. And this danger does not exist only for the patients themselves, but also for those around them, who might become terrified by thinking that their house has become a den of demons. It was this disastrous belief that produced acts of atrocity in times of ignorance. Therefore, a little discernment would be sufficient to understand that in burning bodies considered to be possessed by the devil, they did not burn the devil, since they desired to free themselves of the devil. Then they should have burned him instead. But enlightening us about the true cause of all these phenomena, the Spiritist doctrine deals with death blow of disbelief. Thus, far from confirming such an idea, it is our moral and humane duty to fight it wherever it exists.
Okay, make a quick stop over here.
Mhm.
Now, let's imagine over here. As we know, the mediumship can be an ostensive mediumship can be provided for any one of us, of any belief, of any degree of intellectual achievement. There is a physical component, as we just saw it. There is a physical component that declares the intensity of our mediumship, make more ostensive or less ostensive, and no one is immune to it. So let's imagine that it so happens that it happens to a member of a family or a son or a daughter of a ultra traditional Christian family of any Protestant or even Catholic groups. And in that household, that individual learns that you cannot interact with spirits, that mediumship is forbidden, that mediumship is the work of the devil. If you are having this kind of phenomena happening to you, means that you are associated with the devil. What does it generate to the mind of that individual who knows nothing else, who grew up with inside of that culture and is inside of that bubble? It could be extremely problematic. It could create that guilty feeling of that individual. It could create that conflict that I have this thing, and this thing is the work of the devil. This thing is bad, therefore I am bad. It becomes a cause, a problem that could lead someone even to commit suicide, to get into escape from this thing. I want to get rid of the thing, and maybe I'm going to get into alcoholism. I'm going to start drinking too much and trying to forget again. All the days get into drugs, or find any possible escape from this thing because this thing is bad. And Kardec makes a very important point here that people have been burned because for having this natural, absolutely normal faculty. If they if they want to burn the devil, they should burn the devil, not the individual. Because burning the individual does not burn the devil, right? And the very important, Kardec says, only education can repair this problem. And put the Spiritist doctrine deals with the death blows to this belief, the belief of mediumship is the work of the devil. Thus, far from conforming such an idea, it's our moral and humane duty to fight it wherever it exists, to fight it for what happened in the past, to fight what's happening in the present and in the future. Because as João just said, it did happen in the past, abuses and condemnations. Unfortunately, it happens in the present. If you go, and I did, we'll look for the word medium, and you go over there, the first thing they stress so much in the condemnation of mediumship and other religious things as the work of the devil, is all kinds of things. And they stresses that a lot. Instead of talking about mediumship, they spend more time talking about condemnation of mediumship in the Bible, in this and that. Even in the New Testament, they find things against mediumship, which is totally contrary of the New Testament itself. But they will find that interpretations to condemn it. And it is, according to Kardec here, and I totally agree, our moral and humane duty to fight wherever it exists. It happens today, and it's perhaps happen in the future. And we who understand this doctrine, we who use as a tool for our progress, should combat this deviation from the truth, from the reality. Comments?
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. What should be done with a faculty of this kind spontaneously develops in an individual is to allow the phenomenon to follow their natural course. Nature is wiser than human beings. Moreover, Providence has its plans, and the most humble creature may serve as the instrument of its broadest designs. Nonetheless, we must concede that the phenomenon sometimes assume fatiguing and impotent proportions for everyone involved. In every case, here is what should be done. In Chapter 5, Spontaneous Physical Manifestations, we already provided some advice on the matter by stating that we must establish relations with the spirit in order to know what it wants. The following method is equally based on observation. The invisible beings who reveal their presence through sensible effects are usually low-order spirits whom we can control through moral ascendancy. And it is this condition of ascendancy that we must endeavor to acquire. In order to do so, it is necessary that the individual pass from the state of natural medium to the facultative medium. An effect is produced similar to what occurs during somnambulism. We know that natural somnambulism generally ceases when replaced by magnetic somnambulism. The liberating faculty of the soul is not extinguished, but is rather given another course to follow. The same thing happens with the mediumistic faculty. Instead of preventing the manifestations, which can rarely be done and is not free of danger, we must teach the medium to induce them by the will, imposing it upon the spirit. In this way, the medium manages to overpower it, making a dominating and sometimes tyrannical spirit into a subordinate or frequently quite docile one. A noteworthy fact is that experience has confirmed that in such a case, a child can have the same or even greater authority than an adult. This is another proof of the fundamental principle of the doctrine, according to which a spirit is only a child due to its physical body, but has within itself a development that it had acquired prior to its current incarnation, which can confer upon it an ascendancy over spirits who are less evolved. The moralization of a spirit through the counsels of a third influential and experienced individual, if the medium is in no position to do so, is nearly always an effective means. We should return to this subject later.
Okay, got it. Sorry, I lost a little bit. So we know that the faculty happens spontaneously. Basically, we are born with this physical component that allows that mediumship to express itself with or without our consent. So what is the choice? To educate, to understand what is it that we have. to go against this natural phenomenon is counterproductive. If you use the example of dexterity again, there was one point, and perhaps it still happens today, I don't know if João knows, that in children born with the right brain dominance, they will be left-handed. They write with the left hand. And there was a period in which they would re-educate that person to not use the left hand. For some reason, it was, I don't even know, was anti-Christian or for whatever reason. Kids could not be left-handed. They would re-educate this person to be right-handed. That would create problems for the child. That would delay the development. Of course, there is exceptions to the rules. I mean, if you develop ability to be ambidextrous, it's good. In sports, it's good, right? I mean, if you play left-hand individuals who play certain sports as an advantage, because naturally most of us are right-handed, they don't expect things to come to us in one way, come from the right side, and when it comes to the left, it's a little more difficult for us to react. But with the mediumship, it's the same thing. It's something that you are born with, is that you have. That to try to swim against the current, deny something that is natural, can be very counterproductive. Can cause guilt feelings, as just covered. You are a bad thing, and then you try to ignore what's present. And when the West thing, it would be to educate that thing, right? So what Kardec said that the first thing to do is to allow the phenomena to follow the natural course. Because nature knows better. And but they allow the phenomena to follow its natural course is not only let it go and run straight and do whatever you want. No, we have to educate it. To allow it to follow its natural course means to understand that it exists, that it's present, to be used. Now you have to educate the use of it, right? No, let's go and do whatever it wants. No, you are the medium. You need to be in control of your mediumship. Not just let go and follow whatever it wants to do, but do not deny its existence and make the proper use of it. Because if we don't, Kardec puts over here, we must consider the phenomenon sometimes causes fatigue in inopportune proportions for everyone involved. When you don't have control of our faculty, when we donate our substances to spirit to do whatever they want to do with it, they may do whatever they want to do with it. It may not be pleasant. It may not be good. It may cause problems. And we're not going to read this whole number one footnote over here, but he's talking about the incidents that happened in this place in Germany, in which was basically spirits going crazy using mediums of physical phenomena to cause a lot of destruction, a lot of problems, hurting people, and doing all kinds of things. It can happen. So there is one thing that we can do is to educate. And you have to understand that the same way that we need to educate ourselves here in this physical existence incarnate, we need to educate spirits in the spiritual world. Kardec's telling us here that spirits who make use of this substance are not very evolved spirits. The more superior, the more morally evolved spirits, they're not unable to interact with such dense matters as ectoplasm, as this fluid required for the phenomena to happen. So it is usually performed by less evolved spirit. Now, less evolved does not mean evil. It just means less evolved. It could be less evolved and with the most moral, good intentions and make good use of it. But if you look at ourselves today here and imagine that once we, the general population, when we go back to the spiritual world, we do not change that much and not become saints, we become what we are. It's very easy to understand there is a good bunch of still quite ignorant spirits that having an opportunity of using this faculty of other mediums to do whatever they want, it's easy to understand that many would not do good things with it. They just kind of creating problems for everyone involved. There is just one solution to education. The education of the medium, him or herself, equally the education of the spirits who may utilize those energies. We need to be in control of it. The medium is responsible for the phenomenon. The medium must have control of it. And the only way to do it is through education. Kardec made a comparison here with somnambulism. In order to do so, it is necessary that the individual pass from the state of natural medium to facultative medium. So it's important that you know the phenomena. Don't be ignorant of something that you have. You have it, it's there, know of it, educate it. You need to have, then you can have control, because again, you cannot have control something that you even know. That you're completely ignorant about it, right? An effect is produced similar to what occurs during somnambulism. We know that natural somnambulism generally ceases when replaced by magnetic somnambulism. And what is somnambulism? Here, Kardec calls somnambulism as a liberating faculty. Okay, we're going to study somnambulism ahead. I'm not going to go through it right now. It's part of our studies in the book. I'm not going to go ahead of the book over here, but it's saying that somnambulism is a liberating faculty. Okay, when the spirit is basically liberated from the limitations of the physical body. Okay. Once a somnambulistic is aware of that possibility and educates it, it ceases to be a natural and becomes a magnetic, means that you're in control of it. Okay. The importance of educating the medium is primarily the education of the moral values, because it is that moral values that create that moral authority that is what is the word? That is determinant in the leadership, in the control of the faculty. That authority that the lower or spirits morally cannot overpower. That moral authority is what really determines who is in control, who is going to lead this thing, who is going to control what the spirit is going to do or not to do. If the medium does not have that moral authority, he loses that authority, and the spirit may do whatever they want to do. The spirits may be very intelligent, intellectually evolved, but not have the best moral qualities. But if the medium is equally ignorant, morally speaking, then the things they become a problem. And Kardec says over here that when it happens with children, children may have the faculty, they may be in greater control of its faculty more than adults, which is a proof that the child is a young chronicle age, but it's an old and wise spirit that already brings that moral authority that is in control of the phenomena much better than many adults. What if the individual has the faculty but lacks the moral abilities to educate spirit? Then we can resort to a third party, someone that is not the medium, him or herself, to educate the spirits. One of the ways that we do that is in our mediumship meetings. When I say in our mediumship meetings, there is tremendous education of spirits to those who are communicating, but also to a much larger number of those who are not communicating. So when we have a communication of spirits and have a dialogue with one spirit, that education is for many of the spirits who are there taking part of that meeting and not really having the necessity or the possibility of doing the communication. But through mediumship meetings, a third party can educate both the medium and the spirits around. And the mediums, again, in a mediumship meeting, they may have ability of the physical phenomena, and we know that some do. And when they go to the mediums, they are educated themselves, but equally important, the spirits associated to those mediums are also educated, also taking part of that meeting. So this is a very important topic for us to keep in mind. The education is what matters, but not only the education of the incarnate, equally important education of the spirits who participate in the phenomena and the general population, carnate and discarnate as well. Any comments? So let's finish with electrical persons, because there is, to me, there's not much in it at all. And we can close with that, okay?
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Well,
Okay. Electrical persons, 163. It would seem that to this mediumistic category belong those persons gifted with a certain charge of natural electricity, who are variably human torpedoes, producing the effects of attraction and repulsion through simple contact. However, it would be erroneous to regard them as mediums, since true mediumship supposes the direct intervention of a spirit, and experiments have conclusively shown that in this particular case, electricity is the only agent behind the phenomenon. This strange faculty, which may also almost always be regarded as an illness, can sometimes be linked to mediumship, as seen in the case of the spirit rapper of Ben. However, most of the time, it is completely independent. According to what we have stated, the sole proof of spirit intervention is the intelligent character of the manifestations. Whenever this factor is absent, it is most logical to attribute the phenomenon to purely physical causes. The question still remains as to whether electrical persons might have a greater aptitude for becoming physical effects mediums. We believe they would, but only experience will verify it.
Okay.
Okay.
So electrical persons, even the name to me declares there's something beyond mediumship. These are individuals that are able to perform physical phenomena that our science cannot yet shows its causes or even how it happens. There are individuals over there that have shown that they can attract metals to their own body, and they put those individuals through a CT or MRI, and there is no magnet inside. So they swallow the magnet, and that's what's pulling the metals to them, and they do quick tests without harming those individuals at all. And they said no, that they have nothing physically abnormal about them. There's no fraud, and they still are able to perform some kind of things that the general population cannot perform. Now, Kardec puts away this is the most important part, to me, the only really important thing here. However, to be erroneous to regard them as medium, since true mediumship supposes the direct intervention of a spirit, and experiments have conclusively shown that in this particular case, electricity is the only agent behind the phenomena. And again, one will question the word electricity, and I do question it myself. But it's about electricity, it's this ability that Kardec puts over here of attraction and repulsion. They could attract things to them or take things away from them. Kardec himself was a student of mesmerism. Kardec himself worked with Mesmer. I think I read that he was a magnetic person, so to say, himself. I'm not saying that this is a fact or not, but we know that he did. He studied mesmerism, so he knew the phenomena from a scientific point of view. And he knew of cases of individuals who have this capability. And he has authority because of his studies to separate the two things. That the so-called electric persons, you would not be calling them mediums. That would be erroneous to regard them as medium. Okay. Now, Kardec also says, but could that be some kind of predisposition, or that could be a sign of the possibility of these individuals to become mediums of physical effects? Kardec says over here that he believes that it could, but only experience will verify it. And this is very, very important. That maybe the individual has this ability, has the seeds of mediumship that already you are born with it, but he has no evidence to say that that's the case. Okay, so we should not be linking the two things. But again, we cannot eliminate the possibility that they coexist. An individual may have this magnetic ability, this mesmeristic ability, and also be a medium. But the two things, as of now, we are considering them to be independent. And I think we're going to stop here for now. And, is there any questions, any comment?
If you want to study this case of the spirit rapper of Berg Zabern, this is on the Spiritist Review of May 1858. There is a very long article about this spirit, the spirit wrapper of Bergzab Burn.
Okay, so we're gonna leave the sensitive or impressionable mediums for next year.
Yeah. So we'll be back on January 4th with the study of action and reaction. We still have our meeting tomorrow, our fraternal assistance meeting at the SGNY, and then we'll be closed for the following 2 weeks, coming back on January 4th.
Okay, so who's there? So, do you want to make the last prayer of the year in our meetings?
Yeah, I'll try to do the best. Yes.
You can do it.
And now, dear Father, our spiritual benefactors who are here with us and studying this beautiful chapter in the Mediums book about mediums, to understand the importance of mediumship, to understand that education is the most important for the medium and the spirit, the moral values of Jesus Christ, which is interpreted in all when we study mediums. To understand the teaching is most important, not to find ourselves in an erroneous situation that would lead us into more of a detriment of confusion. We are so grateful for this, to understand the importance of mediums and how it helps and guide all of us who are here in this spiritual world, and especially in the physical world. We are so grateful for this. We thank you, dear Lord. And as we continue throughout our studies at the end of this year, we pray and we give thanks to our Father for all that you have given us throughout this year and more to come, dear Father. Allow us, dear God, that we continue understanding who we are, the most important, to love each other, to care and understand the necessities of others, to understand the power of prayer. For so many are going through so many difficulties, and most important is that we continue our studies in our lives to help us to move forward and to help in general all that are suffering in this world, dear Father. We are so grateful. We thank you for the continuous studies every week, every Sundays, to instill so much knowledge in us that there is no way that we could fail. For the love of our Father, for our beloved Jesus Christ, our spiritual benefactors, the guardian angels, we are so grateful. We thank you. We ask as we leave here today, continue throughout the week with our studies. And as we come to the end of a year, we ask our Lord to be with us, to guide us and continues to guide us in a world that needs so much guidance, with prayers and faith that we are never, never alone. So let's continue throughout the end of this year, the continuous study, prayers. And when we begin a new year, we will focus much more and understand much more of all that we've received. We are so grateful, and we thank all our teachers, our mediums, all that come to assist in our progress in this physical world. We are so grateful. We thank you. And we ask, as we leave here today, to keep ourselves focused in prayers, with faith in our hearts, with strength and courage, never to give up, no matter what comes our way, because we have so much that we can fall on, to continue with strength and courage now and always. We thank you, dear Lord. And as we leave here today, we close with our love to our guidance, our spiritual benefactors, our guardian angels. Thank you. May we have a beautiful day today and meet again tomorrow. We thank you, dear Lord. And with this in mind, we ask permission to close our beautiful meeting today. We thank you. So be it.